it's almost like it's being swept under the rug, or people are just expecting people to know better, and they're not, because if they were, the infection rate wouldn't be as high as it is right now.
HIV in the African American community.
We shall not be moved.
And the poster art of Amos Kennedy, next on Black Nouveau.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Milton, Dockery.
And I'm Faithe. I'm glad you could join us. On this edition, we'll examine the work New Horizons is doing to help young people lead productive lives and speak with the author of a new play, Voices of the Fatherless Child.
We'll also review the poster art of Amos Kennedy Jr. But first, today is World AIDS Day. It is estimated that 1 out of every 22 African Americans has the HIV virus. We have team coverage of the HIV crisis in our community.
We begin that coverage with the author of It's in My Blood. Liddy Collins has more.
I went to the Real Tech, as everybody calls it, and then
Author and Bradley Tech High School grad Shanita Crown Marks finds that a lot of churches don't address the physical health of its members. She said they talk about the spiritual and might talk about the mental, but the physical health is left unattended to. So Marks addresses them in her novels, of which one is entitled It's in My Blood.
Your book, It's in My Blood, is about what?
It's about a young lady with HIV who returns home to deal with the fact that she is pregnant and HIV positive. It's about HIV awareness and the way that the church or the body of Christ is or isn't addressing it. It was inspired by my friend. He died of full-blown AIDS, and no one at our church, but a few of us knew that he had that condition because he was ashamed. He didn't feel like the church would respond in love to him, and that really just bothered me, and it kind of planted a seed for the story. And of course, I started researching and checking into what was being done in the faith-based community, and I just felt the need to tell the story. Instead of writing something nonfiction, I felt like people could feel it more if they saw how it affected a family when someone gets diagnosed with HIV.
Why this subject matter?
African American women between the ages of 18 and 25 are right now the highest rate of new infection, and they have been for about the last 10 years. I found out that young ladies who have been sexually molested or assaulted are 2 to 3 times more likely to contract HIV, and that really hit home for me because of my background. And I just found out that the African American community, here recently they released a study that the African American community, if it was its own nation, would be one of the 5 highest HIV infected nations of the world if it was just its own nation inside of itself. So I was just really shocked and concerned because it's not a lot being said about it. Like in the 80s, there was this big push, get tested, no, and it's almost like it's being swept under the rug, or people are just expecting people to know better, and they're not, because if they were, the infection rate wouldn't be as high as it is right now.
What do you hope people or your readers get out of this book?
2 things I want people to take away from It's in My Blood. One is that you can make a difference. When you find out someone has HIV, still touch them, still hug them, still love them, treat them like they're still a person, that in and of itself does a lot for someone who has HIV. The other thing is I want them to be inspired to take some kind of action. Talk to their friends and their community about getting tested. Talk to their church about starting some kind of ministry inside of the church for people who have HIV, and just do something, even if it's just them getting tested. I have had several readers that said they went and got tested after reading the book because they just hadn't done it and they hadn't thought, that they needed to. But even if that's all you do, just do something to help with having knowledge of what your status is and others as well.
What should people do, the first step they should do to get involved with the HIV AIDS landscape?
The first thing anybody and everybody should do is get tested. You can get a test for free. If you have a cell phone, you can text. You can go online. You can text nohiv.org, and it'll give you a number to text, and they'll tell you where your closest HIV clinic is so that you can get tested for free. So the first thing I tell everybody to do is get tested. The second thing I tell everybody to do is wear protection. They have female protection and they have male protection. And yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I know abstinence is 100%, but truth and reality are 2 different things. People are having sex in the church and outside of the church. And I say if you just can't stop, then at least be protected. Anyone who's looking for information about my book can go to my website. It's www.shawneda.com. That's SHAWNEDA. I'm also on Twitter at Shawneda. I'm on Facebook. If there is a social network, I'm on it. And I'm on it on my phone, so I'm very approachable, and I love going to book clubs, coming to libraries, doing readings, writers' workshops, everything. So just want to help spread the word about awareness.
In the fight against HIV and AIDS, it's better to know your status than to not know your status, which is why today I'm at the Black Health Coalition of Wisconsin to take the HIV test.
Welcome to the Black Health Coalition of Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I understand
The test is free and doesn't take long. It can be done anonymously or confidentially.
The choice is still up to you. Which one would you prefer, an anonymous or a confidential?
Let's go with confidential.
Okay, confidential, thank you. I'm glad you chose that, because then if you forget about the test, we're able to contact you and let you know that you need to come back for your result, okay? First of all, I need you to sign here. Thank you. So that allows us to give us permission to test this. So what we're doing is we're taking an oral swab test. There we go. We just ask you to take that, place that inside your mouth, take that that white swab face down on the outside of your teeth. Yes, between your cheek and there you go. You can close that, and now we can proceed to ask the other parts of this test.
While the test is being administered, you do have to answer some personal questions to assess your risk. Once done, it will take about a week to get the results.
You have just been tested for HIV. This vial will go to the state lab in Madison. It should take about a week for it to come back to me. So what I want to do now is set up an appointment with you to have you come back, or at least call me in a week just to make sure that the result is here, okay?
You have to come back to get the actual results of the test.
And joining me now is Jim Addison, coordinator for the HIV/AIDS services at the Black Health Coalition of Wisconsin, and the administrator of the HIV test you just witnessed. Mr. Addison, welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Addison, why do you require people to come into your office to get the results of their test?
Well, first of all, by law, you can't really give a HIV result over the phone, and it also gives us a chance to do some counseling based upon what we might have found out during that questionnaire portion of it. Because what we try to do during an HIV test is not just test. We try to do counseling, HIV education. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to cover during that time with the person.
Holistic approach.
Holistic approach.
What happens if the test comes back positive?
What I try to do is I try to kind of gauge where the person's risk is prior to the test coming back, and I ask them, you know, if this test comes back positive, what you gonna do? You gonna let me help you? So I try to bridge the conversation beforehand. And so now if a test does come back positive, before that individual comes back to get the results, I'm trying to set up referrals, I'm trying to set up medical care, I'm trying to get people that person is going to end up going to see. I'm trying to get all those appointments lined up so that when they come back, if I have to take them myself, I take them to that next appointment. So it's a lot of touching bases and a lot of collaboration that goes in with a positive result.
I would assume that psychological help is also offered, because that has to be devastating.
Yes, if needed. The agencies that we collaborate with, when they go in, they do an assessment of the person, and they find out where, the needs are. They try to meet those needs.
Do people have to make an appointment, or can they just drop in?
We would prefer an appointment, of course, but we're not going to turn anybody away. If I'm there and somebody comes in looking for a test, or one of my staff, then we will actually perform that test. Okay. But for more convenience for the person coming in, of course, it's better to make an appointment. Okay.
Now, testing isn't only done in the office, isn't it?
No. Okay. We also do testing at 3 church sites in the Milwaukee area, which I can give, if persons call in to ask me that. And, that those tests are also done in an area where there's some privacy allowed for the line of questioning that is asked, because there's some personal questions that are asked during that for us to assess the person's risk, whether it be low risk, moderate, or high risk.
What has been the response of the religious community to testing? I know you mentioned you're in 3 churches, but overall?
Well, initially, we started about 5 or 6 years ago. Initially, there was a little resistance, not just from the church community, because people just couldn't fathom HIV testing being done in a church. But over time, when they saw how we've done it, we respect the houses that we're in, and over time, it's just become a normal part of the services provided in those churches.
Now, HIV is a disease that people don't have to catch. So why are the numbers increasing?
Wow. We don't have enough time for that question. It's just going part and parcel with a lot of the other things that are going on in the African American community. We really need a holistic community approach. It can't just be HIV agencies dealing with it. It's got to be church. It's got to be mamas, grandmamas. You know, anybody that comes in contact with people, some kind of conversation has to be had about HIV if we're going to see any difference.
Where is this disease spreading most prevalent?
Well, right now, and I answer this question cautiously, because whenever we pinpoint one population, it kind of makes everybody else kind of unsuspecting. But right now, the prevalence is within the men who have sex with men community, particularly from the ages of 14 to about 29. It's about 158% increase from about 2007 or so.
Now, this disease is also having a tremendous impact on African American women as well, correct?
Yes, it is. It's having a tremendous impact.
Why is that?
Well, African American women, once again, one of those questions that's really hard to get one answer for, but African American women really play a tremendous role in our community. And it just turns out that their health is kind of on the back burner when it comes down to many of the things that they do in our lives. So by the time they go and get themselves checked out and really think about themselves, it's almost kind of too late. So it's economic, it's just a whole myriad of issues. Briefly.
How do we get a handle on this?
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Everybody, talk about it.
Okay. If people want more information, how can they go about getting it?
Well, they can reach me at 933-0064. Or we have a website, www.bhcw.org.
Mr. Addison, thank you so much for joining us on such an important topic.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved like a tree.
Social justice is just, I think it is a part of my makeup. You know, I grew up in the 60s when there was a completely different environment in America, where social justice, where the need for justice really did exist. And so I think that's embedded in me. And my parents embedded the idea that all people are equal and that you must help when you can.
Amos Kennedy Jr. is a printing press artist with an international reputation. His posters speak to social, political, and racial issues.
Some of my best pieces, I really like things that I've done related to the civil rights movement. I did a whole series summer before last to accompany work from Alabama that was on exhibition in Italy. And they had a series of photographs that were taken during the Selma to Montgomery March, especially the Bloody Sunday. And I did a series of that, and that's where the maps came from that project. There is still a need for justice, but I think that in the American society there has been a lack of attention to justice, and commercialism has trumped the social nature. I tell people that we have become a nation of consumers, not citizens.
Kennedy gave up the comforts of the corporate world to pursue his craft.
What I do is letterpress printing, and until the late 60s, letterpress printing was commercially viable. And so there were many shops, say in Milwaukee, that did letterpress printing. But by the late 60s, offset printing became the commercial way of printing, so letterpress fell out of favor and the equipment became available to artists. For a number of years I had practiced calligraphy, but the problem I had with calligraphy is I would do a very long piece, and when I get to the last line I would misspell a word, so I'd have to start all over again. And then in the late 80s I took my two sons to Williamsburg, and there I saw letterpress printing in a shop, and I wanted to do it. And we got back to Chicago, and I found a place that would teach it, a place very much like Redline, a community print center. And I took a course, and I tell people it's like falling in a hole. Gravity takes care of you after you take the first step.
His work stirs emotions and encourages viewers to think in different ways.
My favorite pieces are the ones that sell. So the one that you buy today will be my most favorite piece today. But I enjoy doing them. One of the things that I enjoy most is when I print, I do it with such randomness that no two posters are the same, the backgrounds on them. So what I really enjoy is looking at all the posters at once as they scattered across the shop, because there's a similarity but difference, and that is what makes the world. We are all the same because we're all different.
Although he enjoys an international reputation, he often refers to himself as a humble Negro from the South.
Actually, I'm not a Negro. My birth certificate says I'm colored. Both my parents were colored. I was born in Louisiana. And on my birth certificate it says father, race colored, mother, race colored. So that makes me officially in the state of Louisiana colored. And I tell people I was born colored, I was raised Negro, I was educated black. So I have this thing going on. But don't call me an African American, because I don't like that term. I prefer the term Negro because there's a strength in the term Negro. And the term African American, again, I think when you think of Negroes, you think of the civil rights movement, you think of the struggle. And you think of a sense of community, because we were all oppressed and we had to get this oppression off of our back. Even if you were a doctor in the South, you had certain things that you couldn't do. You were treated, a doctor with a PhD, as Malcolm X said, is just a nigger with a PhD. And so we had to, we had this unifying factor that I think has been lost after the surface struggle ended. There's still a struggle, but we don't recognize it because it's not blatantly in your face, such as there's the black water cooler, here's the white water cooler. It's more subtle, and we've kind of lost it.
His posters are not expensive because he wants to make them accessible to the public.
Art is a public thing. It is not the exclusive domain of the wealthy. That we all make art, we all are creative, and that you should express your creativity at all times. You are as much an artist as I am. Just make stuff and have fun and enjoy doing it.
The New Horizons Center is celebrating its 25th anniversary. Liddy Collins has more on this African-American-owned social service agency.
I'm straight up from deep in the inner city, and and how I came out of that, it was through education. And
trying to be the first son and brother to graduate high school with a high school diploma.
The New Horizons Center has nurtured past and now present residents to value education. The New Horizons Centers are group homes offering services such as therapy, alcohol and treatment, anger management, independent living skills. The center started in 1985 as a youth residential treatment facility, but transitioned to group homes where adjustments are needed.
Well, kind of like a different change, different rules. There's some rules I don't like, but I still have to deal with them.
Dealing with rules and seeing how a man should function is what caught Troy Coleman's attention when he was Dwayne's age.
I finally got an opportunity to see somebody like me who actually talked like me, but did it in a very professional manner. And I could see how he talked to us when it's time to talk to us. And then when I saw when he was talking to business people, how he talked to business people, how he was able to convert the two without no skips, no trips, no fumbles, no anything. So it just really impressed me. And then I started, really start connecting with him.
The him is Salim El Amin, the CEO of New Horizon. And connecting is what El Amin and the staff of New Horizon wants to do. Connect and remake the world.
Okay, what is it? We talk about this world here. Change the thinking. Because we see everything that's out in creation came out of this mind. And our little motto is chopping weeds and planting seeds. So our idea is to put into the human being, into the youth in those families, healthy values, healthy ideas about what family life, what community life is.
Man, I'll tell you, if it wasn't for Salim Alameen, New Horizon Center, and not just, I'd say Salim Alameen because he's the head guy over there, but I remember Opal, Muhammad, Miss Hayden, all those guys, all the people over there, I say guys, but all the people over there, they really, really showed that they cared about me as a person, because at that time, I probably didn't care about anything as far as just myself, didn't care about anything else, but basketball and myself. And, you know, being selfish like that, most kids are selfish, and I was just a typical kid when it comes to that. But they showed me how to care about others as well as care about myself, and also care about my future.
The New Horizons Center is providing services to offset bad situations that have resulted from the lack of family stability.
It would be nice if a New Horizons Center was not necessary in the community, but the reality is we've got some bad situations with where we are now, and New Horizons Center is really offering the kind of stability and leadership that the young people need. We've got a lot of troubled young people in our community and nowhere to turn, and that's the key thing that I believe New Horizons Center is offering to the community.
So we try to set the example for them. This is one way that we suggest that life could be better for you. Until persons like ourselves and others try to make a bigger contribution to our community and clean up our community, then we're gonna continue to kind of see the results that we're getting. Although, as we say, there is a New Horizons out there, okay, other than ours. So I think the future really looks good. I won't necessarily say in Milwaukee per se, but just looking around the country and other locations, I think that we have some good, excellent youth, good minds out there that's going to make things better for us.
And one of those minds is Troy Coleman, a teacher with Milwaukee Public Schools, once a troubled youth, now a leader in the community. He understands the problem.
I think it starts at home. We need to start educating our parents more and starting teaching the young, even the young parents, because we have a lot of young people having babies. We need to start teaching them more, or how to basically raise a child. I mean, I don't have the answer to how to raise a child. There's no blueprint to raising a child, but I know it's certain things that we just should not be tolerating from our children. I always feel like since somebody gave back to me, it's time for me to give back to my community as well. And so I try to work with young men and do the same thing that Salim and other people in New Horizons Center provided for myself. And what I learned, like I said, is learned how to be, first of all, most of our kids are followers. They think they're leaders, but they're really not. They're followers, including myself. Even though I was one of the guys that was like, it's my idea to commit some of these crimes we were doing, but I still was a follower because I wouldn't have did it without the group. You know, so most of the kids found them in the same situation. Typical young people, you know, looking for something that they can grasp onto themselves and say, this is my own. You know, looking to be a part of something, and that's what I'm trying to give back to the youth here in the Milwaukee schools, and not just Milwaukee schools, but just in the whole entire community.
Voice of a Fatherless Child is a musical play that tackles one of society's major concerns. We are joined by its writer, producer, and director, Monty Maybray. Monty, welcome to Black Nouveau.
Thank you for having me.
Monty, tell us about the play. What's it about and why you wrote it?
The play is geared towards teaching our young men the responsibility of fatherhood and the importance a male plays in a child's life, and breaking the cycle of incarceration, as well as teaching our young women virtue. My reason for writing it is because we have a long-held distorted belief about fatherhood, and I want to change that belief system. It's like it's been passed down generation to generation that it's a bad thing, and the first thing that stigma comes with it is child support. You hear that word and you just want to stray away or run away from the responsibility, but no one ever told us how much honor and good feeling we would have, the good feeling we would have watching our child walk across the stage at graduation, or slam dunking or crossing the field goal at the touchdown. You know, they never told us the pride we could take in that and the joy that we could take in those things, just the bad things.
And what about the aspect of virtue for young women?
Virtue for young women, now it's becoming a bad thing to hold out and wait for marriage and to find the right person that's concerned about you and your well-being and who will be a good provider, a good father, that has his head on straight. And I want the young ladies to know that now, holding out and waiting for marriage and having faith that you will find the right person is worthy. It's worthy.
Is this your first theatrical performance and production and piece of art?
This is my first piece of my first play. I've actually done the play 3 times. Started off small. First crowd was about 60. My second crowd was about 300 to 400. So this is my 3rd time doing it, and hopefully it'll be sold out, and we'll be able to do a lot in the community. For this time, I had a request to come back, so this is like an encore.
Well, yeah, exactly. That means you got some rave reviews from your audience, and that the people that are coming to this particular production are very interested in this subject matter.
Yeah, we have youth developments and youth ministries that's coming out. We take and provide them with tickets, and this particular time we're doing what's called Toys for Tickets, where we give away tickets for toys, and the toys are given to our community youth development centers so they can disperse them. And we have what's called a single parent mother Christmas package, and we're picking 5 mothers and we're supplying them with a whole Christmas.
My last question, Monty, is this sounds like a great play. How can we find out more information about it?
You can contact me at 414-306-2107. Again, 414-306-2107.
Thank you, Monty, for joining us on Black Nouveau.
And that wraps up this edition of Black Nouveau.
Remember, in the coming week, do something to expand your world. Good night.
Good night.